Welcome, Peter and Michael, and support from our officers. Thank you all. Martin in the corner, who's doing Louise's role tonight, aren't you? Yeah, good. Well done. Um, might get a bit better press report. I shouldn't say that. I've got Louise's not watching, but um, to confirm the minutes of last meeting, they're in your papers. Need a seconder. Thank you, Debbie. Those in favour of the minutes, show. Laura wasn't here, I don't think. Uh, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. Public question time. There are no public. Do we have any written public questions? No written public questions. Chairman's announcement. A very brief announcement on finally at last yesterday we were advised by government that the flood grants have been awarded to the island. We await, as usual, further details on how that's to be dealt with. But the good news for our residents on this island that have suffered so badly from flooding incidents can be assured that there is at least some grant funding via government on its way to them as soon as we've established how we do that as a council. It is, I'm told, quite staff heavy, but it's a priority for us. Thank you. Report of the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, the amalgamation of Chillerton and Rookley Primary School with Godshill Primary School, achieved through the closure of Chillerton and Rookley Primary, page 9 of our papers.
Thank you, Chair. You probably said about as much as I was going to, because this has come before us a number of times, and I think it's fair to say we are where we are. The paper fully sets out the background, which I think everyone here is more than familiar with. As a Cabinet, we have looked for potential other options, but as the paper records, in July, the step of publishing a notice proposing, without repeating what you've just outlined, Chair, that was taken. The notice was published on the 15th of September, and the results of the consultation that followed are in the report. The full list of responses is there, but they're summarised in paragraph 16. Essentially, 25 responses were received, 23 supported the recommendation, 1 opposed, 1 was interested in buying the site should it become available. So I think passed by that one. Just before I take us to the recommendation formally, I would like, perhaps with my previous hat on, to point to paragraph 22, as this is the first paper before us that features the new decision-making wheel. And I'm sure most of us around the close table have seen that, but for anyone listening in or behind me, I would like to draw attention to that because it's an important part of developing the Council's approach to decision-making and taking into account the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I won't detail that any further, but it is going to be a consistent feature of papers going forward to show that we are considering all those matters as we make our decisions. So, Chair, the recommendation appears very simply in paragraph 6 at the top of page 10. The Cabinet approves the amalgamation of Godshill Primary School and Chillerton Rookley Primary School through the closure of Chillerton and Rookley Primary School, that to take effect from the 31st of December 2023. I would look for a seconder, Chair.
Questions or comments on this item? Any Cabinet member? Debbie.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to say, just briefly, as we've said before, Nobody wants to have to close a school. We've been through a long process with this, but certainly as the former cabinet member, I am absolutely of the right mind that this is right.
Debbie, any other? Paul?
Thank you. I think the closure of any school is with a very, very heavy heart. School numbers are falling across the island, and I think we have to sort of like buckle up to some of the issues that we're going to be facing in the future. I think it's very sad that we're losing rural, but hopefully this will allow Godshill to be able to grow. And yeah, and with a very, very heavy heart, I'd support the recommendation.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments? I'd just say echo those, Paul, and it's a decisive move that we're making, and part of our ongoing plans to deal with the place plan issues on the island anyway. So thank you for that. A show of hands, please, those in favour of this. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 5B, it's the quarterly performance monitor register for Q2, and that's page 27 of our papers. Councillor Bacon again, I think.
That's right, it's me again. Just for clarity, this falls to me, Chair, as although my primary role, shall we say, has changed, I retain responsibility for corporate functions within the council, and this report, as we know, is published each quarter, but from that section, council's operation. There it is. It is something we're all familiar with. The report was presented to the scrutiny committee on Tuesday. I'm afraid I was unable to be there that evening. There were some questions raised in relation to fly tipping, NEETs and CCTV, but as the notes we have of that meeting record, all those are being made subject to written responses, which are currently being prepared. So the questioners will receive the information they've requested in that form. Obviously, there's a slight oddity with the report because there have been some changes of cabinet responsibilities between where we are now and for the period which the report applies to, just in case some people are wondering why certain names appear in certain places. I think it's best now I leave it to cabinet colleagues to comment on their individual sections if they so wish. Obviously, during the period of the report, my responsibility with the environment climate change element of the report. I don't think I have any comments to make on that, and any comments on children's services I will leave to Councillor Andre, who was obviously looking after that role during the period of this reporting. And I will be asking, after any comments have been made, that we simply note the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's for noting, but before we note, are there any members wish to comment about their own particular or other portfolios? Julie.
Thank you, Chair. I did attend corporate scrutiny on Tuesday, and I guess very pleasing. I didn't get one single question on my section of this report, so I take that as a positive. No news is good news, I suppose. So I take this as lots of good news in my portfolio up to September. Lots of things that I'm doing delivery-wise, still on target. I think it's a general thing around the country that because of the cost of living, because of the shock the economy had a year ago, some projects, are more difficult to deliver because in the state that, when they're first applied for, so this is speaking generally, not about specifics, just because things are costing more, materials are costing, labour's costing. that. So working, I think it's true to say, every council's dealing with that. So we're not sort of exempt from that, but I have to say the officers are working really, really hard with partners as well, and we are managing to work with others to make sure that we get projects over the line, because these are very important strategic projects with national strategic partners that we. So I'll give a little update when we come to that part of the agenda to chair on any news from me. But yeah, just to say, all going ahead, and just want to give thanks to all the officers involved, because it's obviously the way my portfolio is managed is changed, and we're bedding into a new way there, and obviously there'll be some new join the council. I'll probably have more to say next month, Chair.
Thank you, Julie. Karen, I'll come to you after.
I just wanted to thank Trade and Standards for all that they do with scams, etc. So far this year, they've able to save £284,501 for the island, and I would ask people, especially with the flooding, etc., be really vigilant. And if you need some help and support, you have any worries, just give Trade and Standards.
Thank you, Karen. Paul.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Again, on page 68, members will be aware of the percentage of planning applications determined within agreed extension of time. This is an issue I have taken up with my team in the planning department, and we are trying to do some analysis on why there has been the drop in applications being determined within the time frame. Talking to officers, we are trying to determine whether there are issues with the legal team within the council, whether it's an issue with the developers, or whether the LPA may have a responsibility as well. But officers are tasked, and they are looking at that, and hopefully we can be able to bring things back to a much higher level in the future. I think one of the things that we saw happen under the King's speech the other day was changes to the planning service within the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, and one of the things that came through that was the potential for local planning authorities to be able to increase their planning fees, be able to pay for the amount of work and the resources that are required to make sure that we can operate a functioning planning department with proper funding. There hasn't been an increase for several years, and following consultation, we are hoping that there will be more money being invested into the planning department in the future. So that is good news. There was that was seen as a popular knockback from the Lura, as it was. I'm not going to call it. I can't call it Lurb anymore, so I can stop sounding like Barry White. But I think there is probably improvements on the way, and I look forward to seeing improvements in the future. And it will be something I will certainly be monitoring. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. That's really encouraging. Any other comments? Well, I had for mine just to say that at the bottom of page 53, you'll see where there is quite wide interest across the island. The island-wide speed assessment project. Summary report's been provided, and it will come to us in Cabinet early next year. It says January. The history of this could be that it's not January, but it's coming early next year. There will be challenges, there will be problems to solve, because with the report there will become a demand for implementation of some of the schemes, and necessarily that require additional capital funding. So, but that's coming next year. Just to point that out. No further comments. It is for noting. Peter.
Oh, so problem. Is that working? Oh, okay. Thank you. The economic challenges faced by the council are, to say the least, challenging and are likely to become more so. Rather than simply, I say simply because it's a difficult thing to do, but rather than simply making cuts to services, ought the council to consider savings that it can make? In particular, do we really need the luxury of occupying premises at County Hall, Sea Close, and Westridge?
Peter, I would rather have taken that at the end as members' questions. I thought it was related to my comment, but I'm not ignoring it, and I'm happy to get you an answer to that.
Thank you. The reason I asked it at this section is because it does link to the loosely to the agenda item, and I didn't want to wait until members' questions, and because I have another question, and be told that I'm only permitted to ask one. So that's why I asked it at this point.
Peter, that's fine. In the spirit of cross-chamber working that I know you're committed to, I'm happy to get you an answer on that. It would be helpful. It would have been more helpful, if I may say, and I say this in all sincerity, that had you engaged with the cabinet member for budget and finance, you would have understood better, perhaps, the financial position of the council at this stage in that process. But let me get you a written answer that takes into account some of the complexities involved with those buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Are we happy to note the QPMR? That's duly noted. Thank you. Jonathan, are you going to do that, please?
Apparently, someone asked me about 4 minutes before we started. I didn't appreciate. I've been in the committee meeting all day. I didn't appreciate. Councillor Stevens wasn't able to be here this evening. I obviously looked after this portfolio prior to him, so I'm happy to briefly introduce the paper, although given, as I say, at short notice, I hope you'll excuse me if I may be a little briefer than might be deemed appropriate for a subject of this importance. Perhaps just picking up on something you said just then, Chair, in response to Councillor Spink. This is a key part, a key influence, key feature related to the budget process. And the budget is going to be difficult. Daunting is a word that comes to mind. I think it's fair to say, though, I don't think it's as bad as some seem to be making it out in the media. We're being prudent, we're being cautious, we're looking at all options, and I'm sure that approach will be detailed in the information that goes to Councillor Spink. And it certainly has been very helpful, as you say, to have cross-party working, and particularly when members have been able to join with the administration in the room and have a detailed look at the budget pressures, possibilities. I say that level of understanding, I think, helps, and it is a little unfortunate that some who have not been part of that process seeking to make comment without full understanding. And I say that just, as I say, straight down the line, that's as it is, this situation. But as I say, local council tax support scheme, again, I think we all know what the scheme is, and the proposal, which is in the recommendation in paragraph 8, is to retain the level of support at 70%. We were able to take it to that level last year, but the reason I mentioned the budget pressures is because they do have a strong effect on what we can practically achieve. But I think it's useful to note that in the consultation that has taken place, the responses that have been received and are set out in detail in the paper overall, the support is for that approach of retaining the support at the level we were able to take it to last year. Councillor Fuller and carry on. I think he's going to make it through to the end of the meeting. So,
not quite by election, just.
So, Chair, as I say, I'm sure Councillor Stevens would have more to say were he here. The only thing that I'm sure he would like to say, and having seen this process through for part of the way in my previous role, I would certainly like to say is to thank you to the team who are present with us this evening for the exemplary work they've done in relation to conducting the research and the work, and indeed some extra elements of research that we asked for to make sure about the approach we were taking. It's been done extremely well, and I think that is borne out by the quality of the paper we have in front of us. So, Chair, the recommendation is that Cabinet recommends to full Council adoption of the proposed scheme and makes no changes to the maximum level of support working age cases, meaning it remains at 70%, allowing for minor changes to applicable amounts. And secondly, that Cabinet recommends to full Council that it continues the current exceptional hardship policy. So, Chair, just to underline, we're not making the final decision today, but this is the proposed recommendation that we take to full Council, which I think will then be formally considered in January. Obviously, I'll quiet for a moment, so if any colleagues have any questions, they can.
Thank you, Jonathan. I need a seconder. Debbie. Anyone wish to speak? Debbie?
Yes, I think a lot of what I was going to say has already been said, but I'd just like to reiterate that a lot of discussion and work has gone into this by us as a cabinet with our colleagues from the council tax department. There was extra work that we requested. We did look at all options before we decided on this recommendation to bring. I would also like to highlight that this is not the only support available. The council tax support scheme is a very essential part of the help that we give, but it's not all the help that we give. And as you will have seen and heard, the recommendation is also that we continue the current exceptional hardship policy. And I think it's important to note that in the current context that we know that residents are suffering. We are in a cost of living crisis. So this has been very, very much researched and considered before it's come to Cabinet today. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other comments or questions? Michael.
I just wanted to say that the Liberal Democrat group support this.
Thank you, Michael. That's comforting. I just echo for the whole of Cabinet the work that our officers have put in on this, and thank them so much for bringing this forward. It is our aspiration. It seems the right thing to do. The consultation seems to indicate that, and we are trying our best in difficult financial circumstances to support the least well off and the least able in our community. So I'm very pleased to be able to support this myself. Those in favour, please, of this. That's unanimous. Thank you. Any Cabinet member announcements?
Just wanted to just say thanks for everyone who came and supported and made happen the launch of the cultural strategy on Tuesday at our offices at Building 41, which is a great project in itself. We had about 80 people there from across various sectors, and including yourself, and for every member of the council was invited. So you'll recall that we passed the strategy back in June as a through Cabinet, and this then was transformed into a beautiful document that we have printed, only a few of them, but shows the breadth and depth of and the talent we have on the island, from international artists to our libraries, to our museums, to the Island White Festival, things like Hullabaloo. You know, you can go on and on and on. And I know I can go on and on. I really won't, I promise you. But it was really exciting. The buzz in the room was extraordinary. And we had the opportunity to show the sheds across the way, which is a development of our Building 41 project, which an initiative is, it's some office spaces and co-working spaces there, and event space too. So a lot of training there for businesses, and the sheds that are across were storage. This the next part of that journey there, because we're always going to be doing like dirty like engineering maker spaces within Building 41 itself. There wasn't enough room in the end, so now this space is available. This logical way that we can bring this forward for creatives to work in there, because there's actually a lack of these sort of maker spaces. So very excited about showing the space to people, and I think there's a lot of excitement coming back from others as well. So looking forward to bringing that project forward. Just really quickly on leisure. I don't have my normal statistics. I normally give you my normal statistics of where we are with the one card, for instance, and how we're doing at the theatre, etc. But we're still holding our own. We're about, I think the last count I had for one card was 86.5%, where we were pre-COVID. So really good. We're really making a great recovery there, because we've got great facilities, and we're highly trained staff. So it's a really good offer that we have there. So yeah, keep buying your one cards, keep going to One Leisure, and obviously huge thanks to the team that made it possible for us to get the top level of funding from Sport England, £500,000 to support us. That is incredible. Really nothing to be sniffed at all. And I have to say, it's on the back, because we've invested in the past. Half the swimming pools that applied for this fund didn't get it. And I can't tell you why that was, but one of the reasons that we were looked at favourably is because we've made that investment. Use the SALEX grants, the funding we've had in the past, as we've had here in this building as well, to be more energy efficient. So, and because we've kept it to a high standard, our facilities, and that's one of the reasons we got. So I don't normally say when we put bids in, because you don't want to say when you don't get it, but I've got fingers crossed. We put a bid in for the capital element of this grant, for some. I think one of the things we've applied for is some pool covers, because at the minute we use like a chemical to retain the heat, but there's new pool covers available that will do a really good job. So I've applied for them. I've also put bids in on behalf of the Waterside Pool and for West White Swimming Pool as well. So really hoping that some of that money will come to the island. So big thanks to everybody, and go One Leisure.
Thank you for that positive update, Julie. Debbie.
Thank you, Leader. A couple of things from me. I've been working very much with the Stop Smoking agenda and public health. And I was on a national webinar where our own Director of Public Health actually spoke nationally on that webinar. So that was really good. And we've got a particular focus, and we are moving very much in the right direction about reducing smoking in pregnancy. That's going really well. The second thing is just to mention the 14th of November, in a few days' time, is World Diabetes Day. And there will be some communications going out about that. And the NHS has a free diabetes prevention programme. So we'll be getting some information about that. And I would really encourage people to take that up and make the most of that. In terms of, I spoke about more help that's available as we go into the weather, and it is starting to get a lot colder now. A lot of our warm spaces are opening up again, and I would encourage people, there is actually a list of the warm welcome spaces on the council website. And for those people that aren't on the website, I know that there's information through the libraries that they can actually find out where those warm spaces are. And I would really encourage people. It's not just about the actual, going to a warm space. It's about the socialisation that happens there. And I know that certainly in my own ward, they are being very successful. Another thing is I'd just like to highlight that there is the opportunity still until midday on the 11th, which is Saturday, to apply for community capacity grant funding up to £3,000, which again can be used. It's to organise activities, clubs or groups for families, parent carers and or young people up to the age of 19 on things like family-based groups, mental health and well-being sessions. So you've got another 2 days to get your bids in for that grant funding. And finally, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the staff at the Adelaide, which is a council-owned reablement centre, which I visited a few days ago. It's extremely well run and it's an extremely valuable resource that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. There is, as always, lots going on within sort of like planning, coastal protection and flooding. I did mention earlier on about the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act that was that has been supported by through the King's Speech. Very heartened to know that other councillors are also going through the Act, and I would welcome supporting councillors on seeing what good stuff there is within the Act. Officers have been looking at it, they've been scanning it and scrutinising what is there. There's certain things that we would have loved to have seen within the Act that hasn't materialised, but we are hopeful that there may be things that comes up in an MPPF in future. But again, I think, what I would like to see is cross-party working to see whether we can make the very most of this bit of legislation that's come forward. With my flooding hat on, I know Karen's probably going to mention this as well, but both Karen and I, with totally different hats on, were out and about during the floods a few weeks ago. And I'd like to say a big thank you to our officers that gave up their weekends to go out and support a lot of the residents across the island. It's absolutely heart-wrenching to see some of the situations that residents went through, and I would really like to thank, certainly there are so many officers. I don't really want to name one or two, but certainly Tash and Ollie Bolter were there at the chalk face and taking quite a lot of comments from residents. So very big thanks to everybody that was involved. They were brilliant, and it was really good to go out across the island, talk to residents and find out from them how we could perhaps improve things. And I know that Karen and the emergency planning team are doing everything that they can, whereas my area is a much more sort of like proactive area. Having to pick up the pieces is so difficult. So thank you to all the officers involved. I can't thank them enough. I was only there for a few hours, but certainly what I saw, absolutely heart-wrenching. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. I also would extend my thanks. I journeyed. By the way, I hope your different hats were waterproof ones when you went round. Your two different ones. But I went round, also saw our officers and staff who'd given up their weekend and their time to help our community, and our thanks go to those officers and staff that did that. Incredible show of spirit and togetherness, and a very difficult time for lots of our residents that have suffered enormously so far. I think Jonathan's next, and then Karen, or would you like to speak next, Karen, because it's flooding? Oh, yeah.
I'll be brief. I've said quite a lot this evening already. Just to formally note that the work to conclude the partnership with Hampshire in relation to children's services proceeds. It is very much a mutual process, working together positively to the anticipated end date early next year. And a question that has been asked is about some of the services that are currently rise out of the partnership are being maintained, particularly the multi-agency referrals hub have. I'd just like to make it clear that it's not going to be that sudden and complete break. There's going to be ongoing work ensuring those essential features that we got from Hampshire are still maintained for as long as necessary. But as I say, all is going well, and members are being regularly updated about that in the Cabinet. I should also mention, but we'll do so very briefly, school place planning. Again, like with the budget, there has been comment in media and social media and some stirring, I'm afraid I have to say. I think the comment I'd make in relation to that is this is about a lot more than money. The key thing about our schools is standards. That is the key driver in what will happen. And at the moment, having just stepped into the shoes in this role, I am speaking to as many people as I can. I've had meetings with representatives of governors, a couple of schools. I'm meeting with head teachers representatives, and I'm putting out an open invite to any of those stakeholders in the system who want to discuss concerns, offer ideas, suggestions, that the door is open. And I do want to gather as much knowledge, understanding across the whole board from people. Things will move up a gear in the new year. We will hopefully at that point have our new Director of Children's Services, and that's someone I hope I will be able to work together with to pull together plans and proposals. And the public process that was mentioned a couple of months ago, I think, is still to take place. It will happen at that point, and that is really a key part of what we need to do going forward to ensure there's maximum engagement, not just for those within the system, but those affected by the system, communities and so on. Any formal process that we decide it is appropriate to kick off will start, let's say, not before Easter, as I think there's a lot of work to be done to get us to that point properly. But contrary to what some have asserted in the press, there is a clear timetable and work underway to achieve what needs to be achieved. But as I say, it's not just about money. The key thing that I'd hope we are all focused on is standards of education, the future of our children. Thank you for allowing me to say that, Chair. I would just like to take the opportunity, though, to just add to the thanks to all those who worked in relation to flooding and the issues that have occurred on the island, particularly the emergency planning team. In Brading, there was a very localised but very serious issue that I helped out with. It's a little unfortunate. It went under the radar for a few days because of everything else happening elsewhere. But I must say that once the team were aware, it was fantastic what they did and the ongoing support that is still continuing. I can only express my extreme thanks for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those brief few words, Jonathan. Karen.
It's not really an announcement. But, a heartfelt thanks for the community that came together in the flooding. I want to recognise that town and parishes that helped, voluntary sector that helped, housing as well, actually, on the day. Housed quite a few. But actually, they're very traumatised. And I know the media's not here tonight, but I just want it on record, and I know this will go online, that we all very much care about our community, and we're there for them.
Yeah, here, Karen. Any other comments? There being no further comments, can we consider the forward plan? Any comments, any errors, any omissions? Omissions, not Julie. No comments, we'll move on, except I will say that you may like to note that the process for the site in East Cowes at Maresfield Road has been taken off the forward plan. There was, at this stage, no way of moving that forward because there was no interest. We'll now look at other solutions for the site in the future and as soon as possible. That being all, any members' questions? We have two members here. Peter, I'll be happy for you to speak. Michael, please do.
Thank you, Chair. I have obviously submitted questions to you, and obviously we look forward to getting question replies. In fact, Colin Rowlands spoke to me today about that, and I would actually align with others here about the staff team and other and a range of different stakeholders working very hard regarding the flooding, and also attended the meeting last night with the Environment Agency and Southern Water, who again I actually would thank for actually being willing to face-to-face residents in a very difficult time, and actually dealt with very difficult questions of that, because as Councillor Lucioni says, they were extremely angry and upset, and many actually living, you know, I would say that there are certain residents who are destitute because of what has actually happened. There is some extremely heart-wrenching stories of how people have lost everything, have lost their home, particularly if they've had tenancy. So we have to say there's a human side of it. My questions, I put questions to scrutiny, and I did get answers which I presented or given back to residents. The point of my questions is that residents need to know their representative, particularly, you know, in my ward, that there was someone asking questions. So these questions are very much the kind of questions that are coming from residents. So my questions is, one, is the Cabinet of Isle of Wight Council officially holding the Environment Agency account over raised concerns by residents that the Simeon Recreation Ground flood defences were not manually installed properly, which led to the severeness of the flooding and resulting hardships experienced by residents in my Ryde, Apley and Elmfield, and the residents neighbouring ward, Mead. Is Isle of Wight Council going to pursue, because residents have asked this, full compensation to residents by an agency if it is clearly proved there was human error their part? And from the meeting yesterday, which you attended, and Karen, there were residents who still feel even more convinced that that was the case. Two, is the Cabinet of Isle of Wight Council raising concerns about the sewage overflow releases onto Ryde beaches daily from the 24th of October 2023 to the 5th of November, but I would actually move that now to the 8th of the 9th of November, because there is daily releases of sewage at the height of the flooding by Southern Water, which could have huge environmental health implications for Ryde residents. And in fact, residents at the meeting yesterday were reporting visibly seeing raw sewage floating into their houses. 3, what is the flooding recovery strategy to support all the households and residents affected by the flooding in Ryde, Apley and Elmfield, Ryde, Monkton, Mead wards and other Ryde wards, such as Binstead, and how is this being communicated effectively in a cross-agency joined-up approach to residents? It has to be noted residents who I speak to feel abandoned, not listened, and feel our council does not understand their anxiety of their months, years of recovery facing them as they try to rebuild their lives. And lastly, for how is Cabinet going to improve to the observed poor communication between agencies in regard to the recent severe flooding, particularly at the beginning?
Thank you, Michael. I'll read a brief reply. I know that you have spoken to the Director of Neighbourhoods this afternoon, who's provided with some comfort and information. I will read some further information, which you may find helpful. But just before I do, to say that we are absolutely behind our residents who have suffered so badly. Insofar as this council are able to provide help and support, we will do in due course. But my reply is this: we are committed to helping residents to recover from the recent event. This includes providing information and advice, but also the coordination and provision of financial and other support to those households that have been directly impacted by flooding. And my comment earlier in the announcements that government have now confirmed there is grant funding coming, and it will be a priority for us to make sure that is delivered to those people that have suffered as soon as we possibly can. The Cabinet lead for emergency planning, response and recovery is Councillor Lucioni, with Councillor Fuller taking the lead role in respect of preparing for and responding to flooding events. Both Cabinet members have been working hard to support the affected communities over the last 2 weeks and will continue to lead on the community recovery effort and our work on formal flood investigations. In terms of financial support, working closely with the Town Council and voluntary agencies, we now have a full list of those affected in Ryde and other areas, including those in most need of support. We've received information, we've received confirmation from government that we can access the flood recovery grants that I referred to, and we'll provide more detail on this for the households as soon as we can. It's a priority for us. Alongside accessing grant support, we will be developing packages of support and associated on the ground advice, and looking to make this an efficient process as possible to ensure households can access this quickly and effectively. One particular request I would make is to ensure that all households that have been flooded inform the Environment Agency and Southern Water, as this will enable access to support from those agencies. I'd further add that the questions, we will provide direct further responses to Councillor Lilly on the 4 questions that he's read out earlier. And I hope, Michael, that gives you some comfort in helping your residents in the ward that have suffered.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, it does. I think it's important that, and thank you for the response. I did speak to the Director for Community Services, Colin Rowland, today. And one of the things I raised, and I raise it here, it's really welcome to, have financial support, but there are individuals, families who have lost everything, and perhaps some of the grants money will not cover the replacement. I'd also raise that some of the situations are quite complex, people having short-term tenancies, people having to spend long times in hotels or accommodation. And I think one of the things that we discussed Rowan, is a holistic community way and a kind way to help people get through some of the difficulties. You know, people don't fit into the box. They don't actually meet all the sort of statutory requirements and things, but they do need help. And I think some of the cases, you know, which I hope will be helped, where people were actually given notice, backdated, of their flat to the date of the flood from one particular landlord, which is, you know, hopefully they're getting legal advice and the side, but also people with children, pregnant women who, you know, literally were left without the basics of that. And I would say there's been a lot of generosity from the community, and there is a fund that is being established that I'm working with other people about to actually hopefully with the grants that are coming through the council can also actually give a boost or extra things, because people just need some practical help.
Thank you, Mark. I think there was a question in there, but sorry. Thank you, Michael. And as you know, we've committed to report some are statutory, section 19, but an internal report as well. And I'm hoping that some of that investigation and review will identify where, if there were gaps, they can be filled as we go forward. But thank you for your questions, Michael. It's important. Further questions, Pete?
Thank you, Chair. My question is this. It will be pleased to know it's relatively short. Cabinet will be aware that I've expressed concern about disposals of council-owned land. Council land provides an opportunity to build social housing that islanders on the housing register can afford. Why is the Cabinet not retaining council-owned land for this purpose?
We'll give you a written answer, Peter, on that. Again, it's not simple. We'll give you a written answer.
Thank you.
No other questions? 7 minutes to